everyone. Thank you for joining us on the Tequity Hub. I'm Amy DeLouise, the founder of Gals and Gear, and your host for today's session, where we're going to be talking about women in motion. And we've got some fantastic guests joining us today, so I'm excited about that. I want to thank our sponsors. We have some really terrific new sponsors coming on board. So Game Creek Productions and Netgear AV are our newest Tequity Hub sponsors. And we want to shout out all of our other great sponsors. We had a great session last month at NAB Show, and that was thanks to Blackmagic Design and Dell and NVIDIA, and one of our newer sponsors for live events, Diversified. So we're so excited, as well as Signiant, who's been a longtime partner of ours. So we really want to thank all of our partners and our friends at Digital Anarchy, who helped us with some nice goodie bags. So thank you to DA for that. So welcome aboard. Thanks for joining us today. I want to introduce our speakers. The first one I want to introduce you to is Jen Van Horn. She's a freelance senior motion designer and art director. She's in Loveland, Colorado. Hi, Jen. Thanks for joining.
Thanks for inviting me.
She is a photo manipulator and retouch artist, video editor, digital illustrator, painter, online instructor, public speaker, TA for the School of Motion, a mentor for women in animation, and has a cooking show on YouTube called I Make Ugly Pancakes. So that's pretty amazing, but she's been in the industry for 12 plus years and has animated over 150 explainer videos, as well as a whole bunch of other great animated content for games, documentaries, education, and products. And so we're super excited to have her join us, especially because last year she became the creative director for Monday Meeting, which is a weekly community podcast for motion designers. So welcome aboard, Jen.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Now, not to be outdone, Tessa Ugalde is also a wearer of many hats. She's out of LA and she's proud to make a living at many creative endeavors. Kudos to you, Tessa, for making a living in this challenging field. She is an animator, an editor, a photographer, and a producer. On any given day, she could be putting together a large video crew shoot, or editing a music video, or taking professional photos at a corporate conference, or designing and animating videos for motion design studios. And for over 11 years, Tessa has worked with companies like Meta and Samsung and Cisco, Downtown Disney, Marriott, and more. And she's also a mom to an under 2-year-old boy. So I know how busy that is. I remember that sort of like perma-bruise phase where they're just running all the time.
Running into things, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, welcome, Tessa. You're a busy gal, so we really appreciate you coming on board.
Thanks so much. Excited.
And Kaci Smith is also with us. She is a motion designer and School of Motion TA based in Eugene, Oregon, although she's in the process of moving to Portland. So we really appreciate her taking time out of her busy move to be with us. She's worked in motion design for more than a decade and is often inspired by her environment and is very passionate about cause-based projects that drive positive change, which is near and dear to our hearts at Gals and Gear. And she's also a co-founder of Mothers of Mograph. Kaci is committed to empowering women and promoting empathy and equity in the workplace. So welcome aboard, Kaci.
Thank you.
So I want to just ask a couple of you, all of you really, about some of the core principles of motion design and storytelling through motion. I mean, what would you say you lean on in terms of your process and some of the why and how of what you do? So let me start with you, Tessa.
So I guess when I can speak to more recently because I kind of switched my mindset. So when I start a motion design project, for example, I'm always aiming for, I look for inspiration. I'm aiming for like buttery smooth transitions, but then I always have this like imposter syndrome, like, oh, I'm not, it's not what they're looking for or this or that. And I've been just kind of like focusing on that lately and sort of really trying to let my own style shine through. and being okay with that. It's kind of been a journey, but I feel like just this last month, I've kind of like really overcome that. And especially with one specific project I did recently that was pretty big. And I'm like, wow, these people paid me to do this and they like it. Okay, this is official. I have to believe that what I do is good, you know? So I
Right.
just try to, I've always looked at myself as a person who can adapt to other brands because that's very important. I started in marketing. I went to school for marketing and I know how important branding is and sticking to the brand style. But also in what we do as artists is stick to the style, but influence your style as well. So I guess that's kind of what I do when I'm approaching a project. If that
That's very interesting because you kind of have a brand within a brand.
exactly.
And that's true for all of us who do branded content. I mean, I direct branded content. I have the same challenge. I want my stuff to look like my stuff, but it has to also
Hmm.
reflect whatever the Uber brand is. Not
Hmm.
Uber, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about you, Kaci. What's your process and what's your thinking that goes in when you get started on a project?
Sure. So I'm kind of in between worlds in a lot of ways right now. And one of those things is that I do actually currently have a full-time job with a creative agency in Portland. And then I also do some freelance work on the side. And I was a freelancer full-time for 6 years before I took this job. So it really is different for me depending on whether it's a freelance thing or it's an in-house thing, because when we're doing work in-house, we have a whole team that is coming together to do these things, where we will, get together for brainstorming and put together our mood boards and get the client needs fed through things. But when I'm freelancing, I'm a one-man show. And I'm the one who's then doing the client discovery and creating the schedules and also doing the creative and finding the examples, So it's
Right.
it's a much different process depending on what it is. Um, but I do like to start with getting to know my client. Try and just really, one of the things I like to talk about a lot with mothers of Mograph is that after becoming a mom, one of my big superpowers now is that I really feel like I can anticipate needs, and a lot of that is done in the client discovery. So,
Right.
yeah.
That's really anticipation is, I think, the key thing to client success. Is trying
Yeah.
to figure it out before they think of it, before they
Yes,
think of
yeah,
the
yeah.
problem.
Well, and you kind of
Um,
start to get to know, like what it is they're after before they
right,
even do, because you've just
right,
done it enough times.
right. It's like,
So,
it's about the goal as opposed to them trying to define the process.
yeah.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
Jen, what about you?
I mean,
it's basically the same. It starts with discovery, and the more time you put in at the beginning, the easier it's going to be in case they throw a wrench in the project. I've had a few clients that would come in at the very end and say like, "Oh no, we want to actually put this in," and I will have 3 tiers of options for them just from practice. I can give them a free tier that solves that problem in a way that they didn't anticipate or think about. And then I have one that's, maybe a little bit of work and that's only going to be just a little bit of an overage out of scope fee. And then putting a brand new scene, meaning going all the way back to design and have to go through
Right,
that thing again. And that's going to cost a lot of money. How
right.
many times they pick the free option? Almost
Yeah,
100%.
right.
But I know to do that
Yeah.
because I've been doing it for a while and because I spend a lot of time listening in those discovery calls. It's like you have the probes to kind of see what direction they go in, but they will tell you in some sort of way without really telling you directly what they
Right,
are looking for or what their message is.
right,
And just
right,
understanding that audience and understanding the project type. Sometimes a
right.
catchy ad makes more sense than an explainer video. It really just totally depends. But being able to be a generalist and knowing what kind of options are out there and the
Right,
psychology behind the why helps me
right,
get them there, even if it means going, directing them somewhere else that's not me, or, bringing in someone else that I know could do a better job than me. They still come to me, which is great. So,
right.
you know,
Yeah, and I think, and I think the other challenge of this, at least from what I'm seeing, is the number of deliverables keeps kind of morphing. So, in the olden times, it was like a motion project, right? Or
Mhm.
one thing. And now it's like a thing, and then there's like an iteration of the thing, and then there's like a social media short version of the thing. And then I just recently ran into a issue where we were doing something for a large live event. It was a fairly extremely complex motion graphic. And at the very end, everyone loved it so much. They were like, now we want to do like 50 different versions for each of our chapters. And we were just like, okay, that is so not how this was built ever. So that was like emergency, emergency. So are you seeing that there's sort of this trend where you have to
Mhm.
also dig farther because nobody is thinking about the versioning, but you are?
I bring it up at day one.
Oh,
I
I
say, okay, this
know.
is what we're going to do. Let's think ahead. You know, where's this going to live?
Right.
Why? And, I can cut these up for an additional, I upsell. It's an upsell.
Right.
You just say, hey,
Right.
like I can cut this up for
Right.
social media. I can do this and
Yeah.
this. I could do a white page thing for you. We can do different, stuff for your
Right.
website. But yeah, I bring it up because I want to know, because I do not
You
want
have
to
to
have
know.
to
Right.
resize a 16 by 9 to a 9 by 16 at the last minute because
Right.
it's not
Right.
set up to do that.
Right.
Most of the time I set it up in a square format because I assume that's probably going to happen. I feel like 9 by 16s aren't as
Right.
popular as a 4 by 5. I feel like 4 by 5s are starting to become more
Right.
popular.
Yeah, I see Kaci nodding a lot. What about you, Kaci?
Yeah, it's been kind of a funny transition as social media continues to evolve. Our deliverables continue to evolve. So,
Yes, they do.
at first it was just like, okay, we need a 16 by 9, a 9 by 16, and a 1 by 1. And now we have 4 by 5s, and we have and the
Like
safe
safety zones of
safe
TikTok
zones.
and
Yes,
whatever.
the
Yeah.
safe zones have gotten out of control on some of these
I
platforms. So,
know.
and it
Yeah.
feels like Meta is maybe going towards the direction of TikTok. So now their safe zones are tighter as well.
Ugh.
Right.
And so you're constantly having to learn how to shift into these new settings and these new requirements for posting. But I would say a majority of my work is for social media. So it's important to
Interesting.
know those, yeah,
Yeah.
those
And I think,
specs.
one of the other things that I'm seeing is, I mean, we do a lot of translations. And so that gets into a
Mhm.
whole other barrel of barrel of monkeys or whatever you want to call it, with like slippery slopes of safe zones of captions that are now in German, which is like longer, all this kind of stuff. And so I'm curious about sort of inclusive design and accessibility, and are you looking at those kind of design principles, and how are those playing into sort of bigger audiences for the content and other versions? Is anybody working on that?
Depending on the client, really, like if I used to be in a job where I did a lot of different we were working on projects for Duolingo and Microsoft Solitaire, and like we needed a lot of different languages that we were working with. And the culture side of it, it didn't change that much because we weren't doing a lot of character stuff. Or if it was Duolingo, they already have a set of diverse characters to work with, which is fantastic because they have to, because it's language, you know.
Right.
But I haven't been pulled on a lot of different character stuff. Where I'm in the design seat, where I'm making those decisions, but I am seeing that as a request just kind of across the board.
Right.
And there are really amazing studios out there that are being sort of the cornerstone of education on that. Like BN Studio is fantastic if you want to know more about inclusive design and stuff like that. Like different type. It's not just skin color. It's hair type. It's outfits.
Right.
It's
Right.
gestures and stuff like that. And so yeah,
What's the
having
name of the
actual
studio?
BN Studio.
BIEN?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're fantastic. They did a really awesome presentation at Dash Bash in 2023, talking all about it and what kind of people they bring in from different cultures as consultants. And we're seeing that hopefully as something going forward to be more inclusive. Because if you don't have anyone in the room that is from that culture and you're doing something in that culture, that's messed up. So,
Right.
hopefully
Right.
we see a lot more of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And going in a different direction, like accessibility in the sense of like if you have enough contrast in your designs,
Yes.
like my husband is colorblind, for instance, and so he'll lose certain ads because he can't see it.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly I have a great tool because I can just bring him in and check my work. But there are
Yeah.
websites that you could like check your contrast. There's also websites for strobing effects. That's a big one I've had before. When we were creating videos for the healthcare sector, they were very adamant that we had to pass it through a certain inspection essentially where there wouldn't be any strobing
Right.
effects because it could potentially cause seizures, those things. So that like in a different direct, like as there is inclusivity, there's also
Right.
inclusivity of
Right.
different
Right.
accessibility types. So
Right. Well, and we always have to also do things where somebody's going to be a reader, and read out loud the
yes.
audio description, and that can like make scenes longer. It's really challenging if you're working within like a 60-second or 30-second frame scenario.
I've had
Tessa,
to
what
actually,
about-
a few
okay.
clients I've had to educate a little bit on that too, where they want something snappy, but I'm like, I'm sorry, you have a very dense script here. This isn't an ad, this is an explainer. We need
Right.
time for not just
Okay.
reading, but processing what you're reading
Processing.
and what you're hearing.
Right.
So you need that.
Exactly.
You need the slower
Right.
transitions and stuff. And so,
Right.
yeah,
And
trying
then
to,
if you do audio transcription, audio description, that's going to add more time, and
yeah.
it's very tricky.
Mhm.
Tessa, what about you? Anything you want to add to this conversation about design, accessibility, building things in for broader audiences?
What Kaci just said about color blindness, I've never even thought about that or had that come up, and that is so interesting, and I'm gonna totally think about that now.
Yeah, my husband's the same way, Kaci. Actually, a lot of more men than women are. And my husband recently went on a tour of I'm in the DC area, and there's an annual tour of embassies that's super fun to do. But the graphic that they printed on the map that had the circles with the descriptions of which embassy was like light gray with light red. And I was like, it was completely, I could barely read it. I had to keep using and it also, they didn't do it in vector, so you couldn't like expand it. I mean, the whole thing was problematic from start to finish, but he literally couldn't read the map at all. Like we just had to Google map all of them because we couldn't read any of the description circles.
Oh my gosh. I have a quick tip if you don't have a husband that is colorblind. If you put an adjustment layer over top of your work and turn it black and white, you can often see better like what the contrast is there. And if anything is getting too close, you can make some changes.
Yeah,
but
that's
I'm gonna totally do that on my current project. Their color palette's very like light colors.
Yeah, you have to be super careful with that. And especially red, because red reads as gray, right? Back in the olden times of black and white movies, if they wanted a woman to have like a dark gray dress on the movie, they'd put her in a red dress so that it would read that way.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah. So moving on to innovations, I think there's been a lot going on in this field for a long time. And so I'm just curious, I'll stick with you for a moment. Tessa, just tell me if there's some innovations or trends that you've been seeing in design, what has been going on?
Well, I think the big giant thing in the room is AI, and I don't use it as much as I should, but I've been talking to a lot of people about it and how it's there and it's not going away. And I truly believe that if you're not going to use it as a tool, it's gonna pass you by and you'll be left behind.
Yeah.
So, and I've used it a lot actually for ideas and inspiration, and I feel like that's very helpful in the designing process. But personally, I try to use it only for that, just for inspiration, and then I kind of make it my own thing. But it's definitely something to think about.
Well, and honestly, in fairness, most of the tools we use already have AI built in, whether we're using them or not. I mean, your
have been for a while.
I mean, Premiere now has all the newest Premiere has a ton of Gen AI tools that are already integrated, which are super helpful to me, like finding images that may or may not have been cataloged correctly or tagged correctly. It can now search by just the content of the image and things.
The things I use the most are that there's an Adobe podcast. That's like the website Adobe Podcast, and it can make your audio sound like it was recorded in a podcast studio, and it's very good. It works so much better than the built-in Premiere. Not a lot of people that I talk to know about it, so I have to share because it's just amazing. If you have Adobe
Okay,
subscription,
Mhm.
that's
I'll
a
get,
good one.
here's some scratch audio from, or even myself. I'm working on a project and they don't have a voiceover actor yet, so I did it on my phone, and it sounds like crap, So I
Right.
put it in podcast, and it sounds like I recorded in a studio, and I'm like, yes.
Right, you can do it that or 11 Labs, or there's a bunch of other
Mm.
tools that are possible. Someone was saying, what's that software again? It's called,
It's you just Google Adobe Podcasts and it brings you to the Adobe website. That subcategory of podcasts is if you have a
Right.
subscription to Adobe. And
You
it,
just drag it in, right? And then it,
yeah, you just
Spit
drag
it
it
out.
in and then yeah.
Yeah, and there is a built-in enhanced speech tool in Premiere now, but the Adobe Podcast does work a little
It's
bit better
better.
for some reason. Yeah, I don't know why.
nice.
You
Yeah.
think they would
So,
get that technology
I thought
transferred.
it was gonna be when I heard it was coming. I'm like, all right, I don't have to go to the website anymore, but it's not
Yeah.
the same. It's not as good.
Yeah.
so what about you, Jen? What kind of trends in tech are you seeing, and what things are you using or interested in learning how to use?
I feel Well, I know a big thing in our industry has been interactive design with Rive. That's been building, but that's also a very specific niche. So I also don't want to like tell all the newbies run out and do Rive because if it doesn't make sense for your clientele, then that's just an added thing that you don't have to do. But it has been really cool. Some of the stuff that's been coming out. There are a lot of really great courses out there. School of Motion, Jake Bartlett. Like there's a lot of great resources to learn really quickly. And then yeah, with the AI stuff, I just wish that clients and there's so much stuff out there that clients assume that we just hit a button and it works. And a
Isn't
lot
that
of
the
our
way it always
tools,
is?
yeah, a lot of our tools still don't work that way. Like, I have had someone ask me to extend a photo of a brick building that was at a skewed perspective, and AI just was just like, I don't know what to do with this. I'm like, yeah, so I have to go back and
Right,
painstakingly mask
right,
and transform and paint tool and yeah, it's like, no, I
right,
just I don't click a button. That's still hours of work. So stop
right,
It
right.
assuming
assists. It doesn't
everything.
do it, it assists.
Yeah,
It's a tool and it's only as good too as the prompt that you're giving it. So like Tessa said, that's something you don't want to just ignore or refuse to use.
right.
Ways that you can get better at prompting. There are also a lot of courses from LinkedIn, Skillshare, Udemy. There's so many courses out there
Right.
on how to
Yeah.
become a better AI
A better
prompter.
prompter. I know.
Yeah.
I feel like my English major is finally like paying
Yeah.
off,
Nice.
like I am super good at the prompt thing.
I'm finding myself to be more uh not objective. Observant when I'm out. I'm starting to like look at something and in my head I'm like, okay, describe that what you're looking at. And it's the more you
Right,
practice that
right,
is
right,
it's easier to articulate for AI.
right. One
I
really
actually
great little pro tip I got when I was at NAB this year, and I snuck into somebody else's classes when I didn't when I had a break between mine, with Jeff Greenberg. He did a whole session on AI prompts. And he was very clever about creating a prompt first for a still image, and
mhm,
then using that still image to generate a video clip.
yeah.
In this case, it was for like storyboarding purposes, but it did a lot better than if you tried right off the get-go to do the video clip. And, it was like, I don't know, it was like a woman with a coffee cup, but she had like 5 hands and 3 coffee cups and whatever, the classic. But if you
Oh, we
did the
know that one,
photo
yeah.
first and then said, use
We
this
are that woman.
photo to now extrapolate the scene, it was like 1,000% better. And he showed it in like 5 different software tools. So I think they're
And
going to be little strategies like that we
and
start
it's
to learn.
great. It's great for inspiration like Tessa. It's great for ideation. Don't show a client an AI image that you could not create because you still
Right.
are not great at art directing AI yet.
Right,
So
right.
I've tried. It pisses me off.
Yeah, yeah.
So
No, that's a good idea, that you have to be careful of something that's sort of not really doable in the real world.
yeah, like 99% of the time they're going to go with the one thing you didn't think they were going to choose, and it's going to be the one thing that you can't
Of
recreate.
course,
They will fall in
100%.
love with that thing every time. And then as far as like really like trends, I'm seeing sort of a split where there's still a lot of like high energy collage mixed media stuff that's going on. But on the other side of that, there's very slow, mindful, meditative, ethereal stuff. So it's literally on opposite
Wow, that
spectrum.
is
So
two very different trends.
yeah, so it's like you want to be noticed, but at the same time, I'm tired and I just want to enjoy something. So I'm split as a just even personal projects where I
Huh,
want to go because I'm definitely both worlds.
interesting. What about you, Casey? Any trends you're seeing, technology you're using, et cetera?
Sure. I actually just recently went to a presentation that Joey Korenman gave, and he talked exactly about this, where he mentioned AI as a tool. He mentioned Rive, which, by the way, it's super fun. I have been having a blast learning Rive. And that's what Duolingo uses in their app for their character animation. So something to think about. But he also talked about like live rendering for 3D tools. So like Unreal Engine is now like you pretty much can see exactly what you're doing in real time. So
Yeah.
that's another technology thing to move forward. And some of these things were really kind of scaring me, especially the AI stuff. I think that there's been a lot of doom and gloom like surrounding it. There's kind of an ugly cloud that hovers over it because of creative licensing issues, right? But like Tessa said, I really do think that if you don't get on board, it is going to pass you by. You have to kind of continue to adapt to
Right.
the industry.
Mhm.
And one of the things that happens when these technologies comes around, and it made me feel a little more positive about it, is that the accessibility is better, right? So more people can do what they're wanting to do. So like back in the day when editing started, they had those big Avid machines and only people with big Avid machines could do their editing,
I
right?
was one of them. They
Uh-huh.
were big, they were expensive, and every upgrade was $15,000.
Oh
Right.
God.
And then flash forward where Final Cut Pro comes out, and suddenly everybody's doing it in their bedrooms. So we get a much wider range of content creation, and that voices that might not have been heard before can now be heard. And so that was like a really positive thing for me to
That's a good way
hear,
to
I
think of
think.
it.
Yeah, that it's just all becoming more accessible. We're going to get to hear some new voices, and we'll continue to see, some voices from folks that might not have been able to be heard before,
Right.
which
And
I
we've
think is great.
we've seen this in history too. I mean, just from the jump between 2D and 3D, we saw what happened to the
Right.
people that said, "I only want to use my pencil." Okay, bye. Like we
Right,
still
right.
use that, but
Well,
this industry is constantly evolving. It
of
always
course.
has been. It's still a very new
Right,
industry. So you can't join assuming you're going to learn one thing and that's it and become
right,
that expert on that one thing. No, you have to come with a curious mind and an adventurous spirit because you have to be good with evolving yourself, your skills, changing
right.
softwares. If you have that foundation for design and animation, though, then you're set because then you can learn anything on top of it. Um,
Right.
so learning it, going back
Well,
to the why too, it's like you need to know the base and then from there.
exactly. And I think good design is still good design.
Yeah.
I'm thinking back to the days when, Microsoft first came out with tools that you could make your own newsletter, or whatever. A lot of really ugly corporate newsletters
So
started
ugly.
happening out there, with no design principles and really terrible fonts, and
Yeah.
okay, I mean, you could get it done and it was ugly and dirty, but the people who really still had good design principles were the ones cutting through. So I think that's always the case, no matter what the tools are and what the platform.
Yeah.
I've seen
And
some
I,
really fun ways people are using AI technology too. Like that isn't just storyboards or mood boards or whatever. I love using ChatGPT to help me write expressions because
Oh
expressions were
yeah.
always kind of my Achilles heel. And now I have something I can bounce my expressions off of to check. And also things like creating mats for like if you want that inky mat for your thing, like, you could use AI to generate something like that and then use it as a mask. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of cool stuff.
I used ChatGTP last night to literally come up with a full workout routine and diet plan for myself based off my very specific, issues. I've never had a doctor be able to do that. So that was cool. So we'll see if it works. Go to a doctor though before you do ChatGTP. I'm just saying. But
I don't know,
like
there might be some doctors using it too.
Yeah, but I've also been debating trying out new recipes using ChatGPT as a sounding board as well and seeing how accurate it is. I might do a video on that. I think
Right.
that would be kind of fun.
One thing I really love to use it for is also to see what else is out there, because I don't want to repeat a campaign style or a type or whatever, and I might put something in to see, what are the 10 top campaigns, by these types of companies, or if I'm working with a nonprofit, just to be sure that, I don't want to copy other people's stuff, but I want to
Right.
see what's out there and maybe actually stay completely away from whatever else is done if
That's
they're
interesting.
kind of competitors, so
And
to speak.
you can have it scan and base formulas too that are working for other industry to apply to your
Yeah.
specific niche as well. Like I've done that with my YouTube channel. Mine is technically loosely based on a gaming channel I'm really inspired by. But when I have ChatGPT like help me write the summaries and the hashtags, I say, hey, scan YouTube. What kind of hashtags that are, specific and general do you suggest for this particular video? And then it's kind of just a fun sounding board to help you chase trends without actually copying trends, just so you know what's out there.
So what we're really talking about here is upskilling, and I think Gals and Gear is really focused on that's really, what everybody in our industry needs to do, but I think women especially need to really harness the power of upskilling and be always mindful that that's the way to get themselves forward,
And
wherever
build
they want to
confidence
go.
too. I feel like that's,
Totally.
yeah.
And so I'm curious, like with careers, you all have careers, they're very interesting. Many of you do multiple different jobs. So I'm going to start with you, Kaci, and just ask you, do you feel like you have to do different jobs in order to make a living? Are you just built like that? Do you have any tips you can share, especially because you have a day job and a freelance life? Like how are they different? How are they integrated?
Sure. I think that it is my nature, and that's probably why I gravitated towards this field of work. I am diagnosed ADHD, and I like to change tasks. So having a couple things to juggle is actually just kind of a better workflow for me in general, so that I can bounce between them. And having the pressure of a deadline also works pretty well for me too. So I think that's part of why I kind of gravitated this way. I don't know. I'm kind of split on if it's something you have to do, but I think that it is generally better if you have a few more skills. But then somebody might argue that it's better to, um, be an expert in one thing and be able to do that. I have found for me, I've had more success with having a toolbox with a few more tools in it, because then I can jump on other things as needed. So I might be a motion designer, but I've also done some editing. I've also done some sound design. I've also done, created storyboards and illustrated things. And then, and in life, especially being a mom, it's a constant juggle. So, I think that I think it's just the state that I like to be in more than anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it is not for everybody, but I think that for the right people, it works well. So,
You're good at
I'm going to come back
multitasking.
to you in a minute with some other questions, but let me
yeah.
just go to Tessa. What do you think, Tessa, in terms of sort of having multiple skill sets versus focusing on one? What's worked for you?
So I call myself a Jill of all trades, and the way you asked if we're built like that, I really do think I am, because I didn't do this on purpose. It just kind of happened. So I do I have a small production company, and we do like photography and video for like corporate restaurants, musicians, and then I do freelance animation and design. So I do like everything, and it's funny, and I think like it is good to specialize in something. There's a potential to make more money if you specialize in one thing, but if you have that job. But I personally, for like how Kaci said, if you're that type of person, it's truly worked for me. I mean, when I used to just do photography and video, and then COVID came around, and I did events and restaurants, and those were just gone. And did I cut out? You guys hear?
A little bit. It's
A little
okay.
bit.
You're coming in
Okay.
and out.
Oh, sorry. So during COVID, like my event business was just gone. So I had nothing. So I took a different direction and did more motion design. And I feel like more recently, motion design is a little few and far between projects, but I'm just rocking it with my photography right now. So having those different skills for me has really let me live this as a career as a freelancer because I'm able to shift whenever needed, you know,
Yeah.
to just consistently make money.
That's a
Yeah,
great point. The
so
market is not always consistent. I mean, I definitely found that because my production company had already gone virtual, that it was super helpful. Because then when COVID hit, it was like, well,
you're already there.
that's just a regular day for us. So we were
Mhm.
all set up with our workflow, and it really helped. How about you, Jen? What about you in terms of pivoting and doing a lot of different things, which you clearly do and
I
love?
do so many, I do all the things. So, I've always been like that. I'm also neurodivergent like Kaci. So I I thrive when I have a lot going on. But I don't know how much longer and how sustainable that is because I am starting to really feel it. I think just from coming out of COVID was great because I was slammed and making money and doing well. And then we had this overcorrection in the industry that just like we swung the opposite direction and suddenly I was in panic survival mode. And I've also, when I first started, I really hate the term generalist. It just seemed, it was like the
It seems kind of diluted instead
it
of that you're
seems
just
diluted.
really good at a lot
Exactly.
of things.
So I don't call myself a generalist. I was calling myself a multi-specialist for a while because it sounds fancier. And now I just call myself a creative partner because that's what I am. Because I can, you know, I'm either the bridge builder or I'm doing the thing or, you know, like I bring me in, I will kind of, you know, diagnose what you need and then figure it out from there. Because I like working with so many different types of clients now. Um, I'm back to logo and gift design stuff, which I didn't think I was going to do again, because I started with logo design and animation when I first started, kind of moving my way up into then explainers and all of that. So it's fun to be like back in it, but then I'm also learning to pay attention to what feeds me creatively outside of work and trying to align a lot more of the requests I get with that. So I'm doing more food and beverage content for clients. But then I'm still also working for agencies. And then I also like being the hero. I call it the hero high. I chase the hero high. I like being that person that my friends are like, "Oh my God, we have a deadline. We can't do this. Can you come help us?" And then I'll be like, "Da
Right.
da da." And I come in and then I make it happen.
That's dangerous. That could be very
It
dangerous,
really
but
is. I can't do it a lot, but when
yeah.
I get it, it's like the best dopamine hit of all time. And so I like being, and I just like, maybe it's a people pleasing thing. I just like being needed.
Right.
So
Well, now it's interesting to me because all three of you seem like you could really be pretty extrovert facing, even though traditionally designers are introverts. And I think
yeah.
many of us are like extroverted introverts or people who can switch to extroversion when needed. So I'm curious, like
Yes.
Kaci, tell me, especially like when marketing yourself,
Yeah.
like how do you manage that and sort of, you know, set aside time to be really focused and really quiet and not dealing with all the external, but then you have to market yourself and put yourself out there with your different skill sets.
Yeah, this is another place where my worlds are split. Like I think I just live in this state of split things, but with Mothers of Mograph, we started almost 2 years ago. In September, it will be 2 years. And that Mothers of Mograph forced me into being more out there, extroverted, I suppose, because suddenly I was on a stage with a microphone and talking to people about my experience and why we started Mothers of Mograph and these kinds of things. The first time I got up there with a microphone, I remember my hands like physically shaking like this, right? And now I feel a lot more confident about it. And one thing that I really tell people a lot especially in this industry with these big events that we go to and the constant networking and networking is so vital for your business. And it's something that you essentially have to do. You can't really get around not networking. So as an introverted person, that can be very difficult. But one thing I've learned is that almost Well, I would say everyone in this industry is awkward. So like
In the
you're
best
not,
way.
yes, you're
I
not
just
the
call
only one.
myself a super nerd. It's all good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Literally everyone in the room is feeling the exact same way. They're just as scared to talk to you as you are to talk to them. And they're overthinking what they're saying the same way you're overthinking what you're saying. And once I kind of realized and unlocked that in my brain that like literally everyone is experiencing this same thing I'm going through, it somehow kind of like made it a lot easier for me. So
Totally, totally.
yes, but there are definite times where I need the quiet to get my work done, and that can be especially difficult when I have husbands and pets and husbands,
Oh, yeah.
not more than one, just one husband. One husband, one kid, but like
Sometimes I
multiple pets.
would like to have more than one, but yeah.
Oh, yes, if they can come
Mhm.
perform some more tasks for me, I would be down.
Right.
But
Yeah,
the
it's a
just
lot to try to sort of give
it can
yourself that
yes.
space. Yeah,
And especially if you're working from home, it can be very difficult to designate an area for that
right.
quiet time.
Mhm.
Somebody once explained ADHD to me that like you have to use 100% of your brain at all times. So
Mhm.
sometimes you can be working on something and your attention is not fully grasped by it. So then you need something like a podcast or music in the background or whatever to kind of keep your brain focused on the thing you're doing. But then
Mhm.
other times you need your full brain for that task. And if somebody's talking to you back here while you're trying to get that done, then you're in
Right.
panic mode to try to get it
Yeah.
done.
And you
So
have to
it's
train those people. My husband's pretty good
yes.
now. He knows, he'll say like, you didn't hear anything I just said, did you? And I say, nope.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
right
I
in,
need
it's right in the
I
middle
need
of writing a script and you're standing in my office and it's 2 o'clock
yes.
in the afternoon and no, I have no idea what
Yes.
you said.
Something about working from home, I think a lot of times people don't believe that you have a real job. And
Yeah.
so like I have relatives that will just stop by during the day and I'm
I
like, hey
know.
guys, like I can't be doing this right now. And or
I
like
used to put a sign on my door. My kids are
yes.
bigger now, but I used to put a sign on my door that was like, this is really an office
Yep.
between these hours.
Yep. I have a closed door policy. So at home, if my door is closed, they are not to bother me and they're trying to keep their volume down out there if they're home. But
Yeah,
that can
it's
be pretty
challenging.
tricky
It's
too.
really
Yeah.
challenging.
Yeah.
How about you, Tessa? What about your strategies for marketing yourself and making sure that people know about you even while you're busy delivering on tasks?
Yeah, when I first started, my own business and started doing freelance, I went to a lot of events, networking events, and not just with industry. Like I would go I joined like the groups within the city where they had, because I do a lot of work in tourism, and so they'd have like the tourism industry all meet up, and those are all my clients now. But I would go to these consistently, and I approached it in a way where I was just hanging out, just friends. I'm not trying to sell my business. Everyone kind of is there, but everyone, this is what I do. Oh, hey. And then eventually people are like, oh, I know someone that can do this for you. And over the last 11 years, with the point I am now, maybe it took like 5 years. Um, I'd say all my work is 99% referral and repeat. I don't reach out for more now. It's, the same clients or they tell their friends about me. And it takes a while to get to that point, but I had to put myself out there. Um, I don't really do that anymore, those events. Now I feel like the best way is online. I mean, I'm in so many different Discord chat groups, and it's really, and I join these sort of things like online meetups, and I think that's like the new way to do it. And it's really hard having a under 2-year-old kid to do these things. I see them pop up all the time. Every Monday, I'm like, dang it, I wish I could make that, but
Right.
it's
And a lot of
difficult.
times they're during the day or in the evening when you're so tired, you're like, I
Yeah. And
can't
it's like
do the jazz hands thing.
this is the time I'm giving him a bath and it's our routine and I can't mix
Right.
that. So that's the
Right.
stage I'm in now, but I know when he gets older, I'll probably be able to join more of these things. But it is
Yeah.
important, and the fact that putting myself out there and just being friends with people, not even selling myself, is what worked for
Right.
me.
Yep.
Yeah. Referrals are great. It's just really a fabulous feeling to have a referral.
I
I
mean,
was
these ladies right here have both referred me to things, and I've referred.
Yeah.
Oh
Well, and
yeah.
that's the other thing. I think that having colleagues do that. I remember years ago when I used to work on feature films, there were 3 makeup artists in the DC area who are all certified for like the highest level of prosthetics and all kinds of fancy makeup that would be required for feature films. And they had a little mini referral network between them because they all had the same certifications. They were all in the, IA local, whatever it was. And, they were of the same quality. And so somebody would call one of them and they'd say, I can't do it, but I know this person's available. And they would have literally each other's calendars. And, they just had an agreement, we're not really stealing each other's clients. We're just sort of sharing one cohesive group.
I think that's kind of the ticket, is that as soon as you stop thinking of it as a competition and like there used to be this really gatekeeping mentality in the industry early on. When I first started getting into things, it was a lot harder to extract tips and tricks from people and
right.
those kinds of things, or even to get referrals. And now I think people have realized, like, actually it's a benefit, because if I'm passing something to Tessa, Tessa might pass something to me later when I have availability. And having these seeds planted amongst your peers is just such a valuable thing. And Tessa had said something about making friends. I started viewing networking as literally just making friends, and that kind of
totally.
also helped me get past this like weird I have to sell myself awkwardness
Right.
thing.
I hate that so much.
Yes.
Right.
And
And I would say a pro tip for networking is I don't introduce myself as like, hi, I'm a director producer who runs this production company and I run Gals and Gear and whatever. I tell them, I'm a violinist on the side. Like, what kind of sports do you like? Or, get people to talk about something other than like what we do.
Yes.
Is much more interesting, or where are you from originally? That
I
gets
used to
a different conversation.
Yeah, I used to have a real like aversion to the elevator pitch. That was so hard for me. I was like, I
And it's
can't.
not saying you shouldn't have one.
You should totally have one. You should know who you are and what you want to do. But like trying to like go to a networking event and like give your elevator pitch to everybody was not working for me and for my mindset. So as soon as I broke free of that and just started making friends, it got so much easier for me.
Totally. So I want everybody to have a chance to show and tell if you have something that's is okay to share. Does somebody have something teed up that we can talk about? Jen, you want to go?
I could do it. I can't, for some reason, After Effects keeps crashing, but I do have some videos that I can show.
Okay.
Let me share. And also, before we jump to this, I literally teach stuff on networking. And so I actually have a way in an upcoming course that I'm coming out with on how to change your elevator pitch into a story. So it's more storytelling about yourself.
Absolutely. We're storytellers, so that's the best way to do it.
So I love it. And also finding your community. And thing that we haven't mentioned yet on this too, Kaci, Tessa, and I are in an accountability group. We've been in the accountability group for a couple years now. So highly recommend pulling in 2 or 3 of your friends that are in the industry and just like doing that, because we all started at different points in our careers, and I think we all just lifted each other up. We've all given workshops at Camp Mograph. Kaci and I are TAs at School of Motion, and so it builds when you find your community. So definitely do that.
And speaking of community, we're going to connect you to Shirley Francis. She just has to leave, but she posted in the chat that she's looking for help on creating animation depicting the Navajo Long Walk. She's very involved with the Native American community and is an amazing producer, member of Gals and Gear. So thank you, Shirley. We'll connect you guys.
Kaci would be great for that. Kaci does a lot of Native American stuff.
I do. I have worked a lot with the Native American Health Board up in Portland, but my availability is very slim right now. I might have some recommendations.
Stuff to me.
Yes.
Figured out. All right. So share something with us, Jen, and then we'll just go around the horn while we still have a little time.
All right. Can we see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so these are just a few different like GIFs and videos that I've been doing for a event planner in Denver for food and beverage events. This first one is for the Denver Mini Derby. So this little logo that I animated came to me literally as like a flat layer, and I had to go in, cut it all up, and animate it.
Wow, that's a lot of work. Can you?
It's a lot of work. Even the rows, like
oh wow,
the different petals moving out, and then these guys popping up and
their eyes opening. Thing.
You will never see a character not blink unless it's a very particular client that asked me to make them not blink because they freak me out. This one, let's see. These were some ones that I did. Mile High Beer Fest, Whiskey and Donut Showdown that's upcoming. So I have had literally zero direction on how to animate these. They just gave me logos and said play. So that's been really
That's
fun for
fun.
me to just look at a logo
Need a
and
new
come up.
animation of Gals and Gears logo, so we'll talk.
Oh yeah, definitely talk. All right, so there's that. And then this one I did for the Denver Ramen Fest. They wanted sort of like a video on
Oh,
how
I
the
love
event
that.
goes. And so different little like neon signs. I love neon, so that was just kind of a fun
Oh, that's super cool.
little video that I did for them. But
Yeah,
I
like
really
the
loved.
bowl animation, super great. Like
Thanks.
stylistically appropriate.
I loved the design. As soon as I see a character, I was like, oh, I want to make a move. It gets me so
Fun.
super excited.
That's
So that's
super fun.
some things I've been working on. I'm also designing and animating the Brunch Fest logo, so I'll be posting that later as well. Yeah.
Cool. All right. How about you, Tessa? Do you have something?
I do. So this is the what I mentioned earlier about like this really big project that the clients loved and I couldn't believe it and everything. But this was for Meta, and I did all the design and animation myself with no direction, just color theme. And they gave me an example video. And so this is actually a really good example of me. I'm just kind of scrolling through utilizing like, oh, I don't want sound. Um, utilizing 3D in After Effects, but faking it, you know? So like I just used camera.
Unfortunately, you're dropping out. Your audio's dropping out a little bit. Can you turn off your video for a sec, Tessa? Your own video?
Flat things and do to get it to flow. Oh, sorry.
There we go. That's okay. That's better.
Is that
Yeah.
better? Okay.
Oh, that's,
So this is like a video about the servers.
yeah.
And for Meta and kind of just explaining how they work and how they have like a new sort of cooling system. And so it was a lot of, I say fun, but
kind of
challenging.
technical stuff. Yeah.
Technical, yeah, but to kind of figure out how to do it in 3D, sort of that isometric style,
Right.
in After Effects was pretty cool and pretty fun to do. So this is like one of my latest big ones, and we go all the way out to the globe of the Earth. So
Yeah.
so yeah, so that's just that's one I'm pretty
That's
proud of.
super
One that
cool.
kind of helped me like believe in myself a little bit better.
Right. Right. Well, you did a great job.
Thank you.
How about you, Kaci? You got something?
Yeah, I do. Let me see here. Okay. Let me be sure. Is that working?
It is.
Okay, great. So I did a project not too long ago for a documentary film called Outliers and Outlaws, and they came to me, speaking of network, this work came from one of my instructors when I was back in school over 12 years ago. So make friends with your instructors and stuff too. But so she was working on a documentary about the migration of lesbians to Eugene, actually, back in the 70s. It's a very interesting story. And they needed a title sequence and some lower thirds and those kinds of things. So I talked a lot about the client discovery and how that was such an important, vital step. One of the first things I did was I watched the early edits of the film so that I could get an idea of what the messaging really was. And I did a lot of research on, like, there was a lot of activism that was taking place in the 70s within these groups, and there was a lot of like zines and posters, and they're very handmade examples of things.
Yeah.
So
a lot of block printing and, you know, that
yes,
style.
exactly. And one of the storylines in the film was that there was a lesbian couple on the East Coast who hopped into their VW van and drove all the way across the country and came to live in Eugene, Oregon. So I created this title sequence for them, all kind of based on this VW van. And we have like the bumper stickers and those kinds of things for the activism and protesting. So this was a really fun mix of 2D After Effects work, but also some frame by frame work in the turn where this is happening. That's like
Sure.
some frame by frame. But I really wanted to get that raw, edgy, like this was hand drawn, yeah, vibe for it, which is also what they were hoping for. So we did that. We had a map that we had to do, and so this was also part of the theme. Is one of the big visuals in the film was this map of these red lines connecting to Eugene, Oregon, and so that's why the van is driving
On the
along
red
one of these
line.
red lines. Yeah. Um,
Clever.
yeah, and then the lower thirds were pretty fun. We needed something that that they could put quite a few of these into their edits. So I ended up creating a templated Mogart for them so that they could just drop into Premiere. And so you can see here some of the settings that I was able to set up for them. They could easily go in and swap out the name and what the subcopy would be.
Right.
And
Yeah,
if they need,
Mogarts are so fabulous when they work.
yeah,
I'm like, that's like if you're a tech nerd, you just live for a good Mogart.
yes, 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 yes. I think they're so fun, and they really are a time saver for folks. So that was part of the package I had created for them, was that I would do this template that they could just drop right into
Right.
their edit.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I think
We're
there's
about
like
to wrap up, but I want to ask you a question.
Mhm.
Zuri wants to know, do you by chance have any Rive examples that you could share?
Oh,
So while you're digging for that, and you can unshare your screen while you're looking for that,
oh, am I?
or keep it
Yeah, yeah,
on if you can find them easily.
yeah. Let me see.
I also wanted to just ask about teaching, because several of you are basically doing mentoring and teaching, and Jen, I'll just ask you about that because you're doing a lot of that. Why is that important to you?
it's funny if you would have asked me probably 10 years ago if I ever would be a teacher, I'd be like, no, I don't have the patience for it. I don't want to do it. There's something about, especially when you are new to a new industry and when you're a woman, you don't really have a good sense of authority for yourself. Because you just it's like the thing, like guys will apply to jobs and say that, even if they're like 60% qualified, but women won't until they're 100% qualified. And I can't even remember exactly when it happened, but I was talking with a fellow TA at School of Motion, Shay Lord, about some tips I had for productivity. Because I've always been in time management and project management courses, because my parents saw like, okay, you could be an artist, but you have to be a very organized artist so you could be successful. So I was in all of these like workshops when I was in high school and in college, and so I had all of these tools, and also not knowing that I was undiagnosed ADHD, how much that helped me. So I didn't get diagnosed till like way later, um, because I had all these tools on how to prioritize my brain and my projects and stay super organized. And networking was another big thing my parents were really big on, so I was doing that early on. So I had all of these tools, and then COVID hit, and also I had been working remote this whole time as well. So I had all of this knowledge and people were just suffering. I was just seeing people just like, I can't work out of my living room. Like all my only space to
You're
work
like,
out
I
is
can
my
help, I can help.
yeah, I'm like, exactly. I'm like, oh my gosh, I know exactly what you do, and how I do a lot of stuff with sensory memory. So when I was working out of my living room, I had a designated space where I played a certain music, I ate certain
Oh,
snacks, I had a certain oil diffuser, and then when I go to a different room, I had a different experience that was sensory. Like bedroom would be more like lavender stuff, stuff for sleep, and soft blankets, and tactile stuff. So that was a big thing for me. So I started teaching about that, and I started just kind of going over all the freelance stuff, because I never started at a full-time job. I had to freelance. I'd thrown in the deep end, had to swim. So I had all of these tips on things that I wish I had known when I first
Right.
started.
Okay. Well, we've got to wrap up. So it sounds like a great story that we should dive into actually a little further on a future
Yeah.
event, maybe, or something. So we'll talk offline about that. I love
Well,
that
just
journey.
one last thing, like, you have a point of view, you can teach. Like that is the only permission you need is, you know, you have something to give the world. So why not do it?
Fabulous. Kaci, I see you've got something up here. Is this a
Yeah,
ride?
sorry, you guys had to, I didn't realize
Yeah.
I was still sharing my screen, but this was a little Rive animation I created just as a prototype. At my job, they created a holiday called Flummery Knocked, and they had these really fun, like Monty Python style illustrations they wanted for the website. And so this was kind of a learning project, but you can see when, like, I've got the eyeballs following the cursor, and then
Can
when
you
you
make
click
it
on
any
him,
bigger?
yeah, let me see.
I don't know. That's okay. But if you can't, you can barely see the eyeballs.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's okay.
It's not.
It's fine.
There we
There we
go.
go. Okay.
Yeah,
There
you
we
can
go.
see the
Oh
eyeballs
yeah, cool.
follow the
That's very
cursor.
Monty Python-esque. Yeah.
Yes, that was a big thing I had in my research figured out that Monty Python, the little eyeballs are always bouncing around.
Yeah.
And then when you click on him, he kind of does a little like, ouch. So
So cute.
and then this is like, so in Rive, there are these different things called state machines. So this is the idle state, and then there's the click state, and you have timelines as well. But the state machine
Okay.
is the big difference
Wow.
between After Effects and Rive. So you have your timelines, but then you move them into this state machine, and that's what makes it all interactive.
That is very cool.
Yeah. Yes. Very funny little illustrations.
So we are out of time. I want to give everyone a chance to say a final wrap-up thing about graphic design or anything we've discussed that you didn't get a chance to say. Tessa, do you have any last thoughts for us as we roll out of this discussion?
No, I mean, I just really enjoyed our talk here, and I hope I was, you know, brought some helpful things to the table for folks who are like me who wear many hats. And yeah, this was just nice chatting with all of you.
Good. Well, Kaci, it was great to have you. Jen, Tessa, thank you to everyone who's joined us. When we stop the recording, we'll have a little time to chat if you don't have to run. I want to thank our sponsors again and everyone at Gals and Gear. You'll be getting a newsletter from us if you haven't already with what our upcoming events are. We have an event coming up at Infocom where we'll have one of our tech talks and a networking event, as well as an evening event that we're joining with our colleagues at Wave It. So that's on June 11th in person in Orlando. We also have an event coming up in October that'll be during NAB New York. That'll be on October 22nd. So you'll be getting notifications about those, plus our virtual meetups. So thank you everyone for joining Gals and Gear Techquity Talk. We'll see you next time.